countdown, we have the alien signal. Back in 2016, we received a signal from a nearby star, and some people believe that it was sent by aliens. So the star is in the constellation Hercules. It's about 95 light years away, which seems far, because it is, but it's relatively close according to the universe's scale. Anyways, this star is said to have at least one planet, and it's roughly the size of Neptune, and it's thought to have the right conditions to support life. So could this planet have life on it? Who knows? But let's talk about this signal. It was so strong that they believed it came from a Kardashev Type 2 civilization. A Type 1 civilization can use and store energy from a nearby star like us, whereas Type 2 can harness the energy from the entire star, meaning it makes that planet more advanced. So it may just be that the signal was sent from extremely advanced life forms. Moving on to number 9, we have the wow signal. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then smash that like button because it really helps us out. Also, don't know what that was, but hit the like button for me, thanks. On the night of August 15th, 1977, an Ohio State University radio telescope received a quite fascinating signal. The signal lasted 72 seconds and it was intense. More intense than anything in the sky that night. Now the signal did not repeat, and over the years people have tried to find it again, but all attempts have failed. It was like a one-off. The signal is said to have come from deep space, in an area that is relatively free of noise from other objects. Now, it was given the name the wow signal because when reviewing the data, Jerry Amen was so shocked by it that he wrote wow next to it. Still to this day, we have no clue what caused the signal, but it was pretty significant. Wow, Owen Wilson, wow. Moving on to number 8, we have the Soyuz 11. On June 6, 1971, 3 Soviet cosmonauts launched into space. Their goal was to make a record for the longest time spent in space. Sadly, the mission failed and they became the first people to die in space. While in space, their breathing ventilation valve ruptured. All 3 sadly died from decompression. The last message they sent to Earth was them trying to scream for help, but they couldn't, so all they heard was them gasping for air and then weird popping sounds, which is from the air in their lungs expanding from the drop in air pressure and being exposed to the vacuum of space. The worst part? The spacecraft survived re-entry into Earth and landed perfectly, but when the hatch was open, they found the dead crew inside, their faces filled with dark blue splotches and blood dripping from their ears and noses. Moving on to number 7, we have the 13 signals. Back in 2019, the Chime Observatory in British Columbia, Canada picked up a very strange signal. They observed 13 of the same signals. These are what they call FRBs, or fast radio bursts. You're probably like, psh, okay, what's the big deal? Well, all of the 13 bursts came from the same location and they were 1.5 billion light years from Earth. And detecting that is super uncommon. It's only been seen once before. So 13 at the same location and time, that's suspicious. A number of people think that it was someone or something signaling for help. Could it be life on another planet? Aliens? Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the pattern. This next signal is pretty terrifying, and that's because it appears like clockwork. So basically, the signal will chime for 4 days, then after the 4th day, it stops making that weird noise. It stops for 12 days before picking up again and doing the same thing over and over again. It's thought that maybe on the days where it's not sending a signal towards us, it's actually sending a signal in another direction. Some believe that this is coming from aliens or other life forms, whereas others think that it's a star sending out radio waves and then orbiting by something that could be blocking the signal for 12 days and then returning to a position where we can hear it. It's just incredibly mysterious and we don't know what to make of it. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the mysterious flashes, another very strange and mysterious signal that we have yet to figure out. So astronomers have detected a signal that will beam to Earth for 90 days before being silent for 67 days. They noticed that this pattern would repeat every 157 days. Its cycle is that precise. The signal is being sent from a distant galaxy and this pattern has been happening since 2016. Furthermore, the signal is quite strong. It unleashes as much energy as our sun does in a century in just a few milliseconds. Like, what the actual hell is going on? Theory goes that aliens have created a powerful machine that has the capability of sending out this strong signal, but then it needs 157 days to recharge itself before continuing on. But who knows? In our fourth spot today we have the eerie sounds. This is quite possibly one of the creepiest things I have ever heard. So NASA decided to gather all of the creepy sounds that they have ever heard and put it all together on SoundCloud for us to enjoy. It literally sounds like aliens communicating with each other or something like that. NASA refers to these sounds as moans and whistles from the universe. Isn't that just great? Moving on to number 3, we have the pulse of radio waves. Just recently on April 28, 2020, 2 telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves. Now the signal only lasted for a millisecond, but astronomers were blown away by this and said it's a major discovery. Why? Well, this is the first time a fast radio burst has ever been detected so close to Earth. The signal came from the Milky Way. In fact, Chime wasn't even looking for it, but it was so loud and clear that they caught it anyways. They said that this burst is helping them discover what these things are and where they're coming from. Maybe we'll find out if there's aliens out there sooner than we thought. Moving on to number 2, we have the lost cosmonaut. A lot of people refer to this next story as an urban legend, but with the facts I'm about to provide you with, it might just change your mind. So legend goes that back in the 1950s to 60s, 2 brothers were working as amateur radio operators. One day they were listening in on space when they heard what sounded like a cosmonaut returning to Earth's orbit. They managed to record her final moments. Her spacecraft was malfunctioning, and in the recording the woman speaking in Russian is pleading for help, saying it's getting hot, because the craft was burning up. Turns out that her spacecraft caught on fire and she was frantically sending messages hoping someone would hear it and somehow help her. But the Soviet Union just sent her up there and left her to die. Now the Soviets denied this, saying that it was an unmanned craft that burned. But the thing is, a lot of cosmonauts died during the space race, and they refused to reveal a number of those deaths. Half the time they would just cover them up. So this recording could be real. And in our number 1 spot today we have the final words. In 1967, Soviet test pilot, aerospace engineer, and cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov was sent into space on the Soyuz 1. However, the mission did not go according to plan and the spacecraft was extremely faulty. But Vladimir didn't really have a say in going on this mission. He kind of felt forced to do so. He said that if he didn't go, then the backup pilot would have had to go, which was his best friend, and he said he didn't want to do that to his friend, so he went and sacrificed his life instead. He knew the mission was going to fail, and he was right. Once he began to orbit Earth, a number of issues began to happen, such as the antennas not opening up properly. The worst came to him on his re-entry into Earth. On April 24, 1967, during his re-entry, the parachutes failed to open. The signals he sent to Earth were haunting. On his way down, translators heard him say heat was rising in the capsule. He then began to curse the people who put him inside of this botched spaceship, saying they killed him. His final moments were him cursing and crying in rage. Imagine hearing that and listening to a man's final words. It's very haunting. Starting off this countdown, we have the gamma ray burst. In 2012, researchers found evidence that back in the Middle Ages, a massive blast of gamma radiation hit Earth. What they still don't know is what could have caused this. To give you an example of how big this blast was, if it happened nowadays, it would have destroyed every single satellite there is out there. Not only that, if it had happened closer to Earth, it would have literally destroyed the entire ozone layer and then life on Earth as we know it. So yeah, it was crazy strong. It exerted an incredible amount of energy. Now, what could have caused this? Well, there are a couple of theories. One was that it was a result of two black holes colliding. 2, it was a result from 2 neutron stars merging, or 3, some sort of massive explosion took place within the Milky Way. Either way, let's hope that it never happens again, and it doesn't happen close to Earth, or else we're doomed. Coming in at number 9, we have the solar winds. This is a terrifying sound that was captured by NASA satellites, and then they literally uploaded it to SoundCloud as part of their spooky Halloween playlist, and it's indeed spooky. Just listen to it. Obviously, it's mixed with other solar sounds, but it's still creepy. This is said to be the sound of solar winds passing by the satellites. They combined it all together and made this horrifying soundtrack. I'd rather they not. But I will say though, put headphones on and close your eyes and listen to it, the raindrop sounds are quite soothing to the ears, as weird and as creepy as they sound. Moving on at number 8, we have the Cassini spacecraft. The Cassini spacecraft was the 4th space probe to visit Saturn and the first to enter its orbit. And when it did, it picked up some weird signals. The signals were then converted into an audio file and shared online for us all to hear. Dude, I don't know what's going on with Saturn, but even scientists agreed that the sounds they recorded from Saturn are horrifying. Coming in at number 7, we have the sun. The next signal was recorded from none other than our light and heat source, the sun. The Stanford Experimental Physics Lab took data from the European Space Agency and NASA and turned it into this sound. This is the sound of the sun. Waves are constantly traveling and bouncing around inside the sun, and this is the sound of it. Now, this isn't so bad compared to the other sounds from space that we heard today, but there's a crazy theory that this is some sort of message. Like if we were to sonify a bunch of other sounds from the solar system and manipulate the sounds, maybe we'll be able to decipher this message from like the sun gods, or I don't even know. Moving on to number 6, we have the FRBS. So we're going to be looking at FRBS, or fast radio bursts. Scientists are constantly tracking these strange blasts, trying to figure out where they're coming from and what's causing it. Well, in April of 2020, one astronomer found an FRB coming from within our own galaxy for the first time. They examined it and found that it was coming from a magnetar called SGR 1935-2154. It's a mouthful. This, in fact, was the first evidence that magnetars can produce radio waves powerful enough to be detected. The proximity of the burst made it appear really bright. In fact, one of the researchers said, and I quote, "It is much brighter than any other radio object in space, by a large margin." In fact, this burst had energy about 3 times more than the energy that is emitted from the sun every second. It's kind of intense and crazy how powerful that signal was. And we still haven't fully figured out what it means. So, aliens. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the roar of Jupiter. In June of 2016, NASA's Juno spacecraft crossed the boundary of Jupiter's magnetic field. What they captured sounds horrifying. They call it the bow shock. Bow shock is when the supersonic solar wind is heated and slowed by Jupiter's magnetosphere. It can be compared to a sonic boom on Earth. Let's listen to it. They named that the roar of Jupiter. Now, that's not even the creepy sound. The next day, they captured something even worse. That is the sound of the crossing of the magnetopause, which is the boundary between the sun's magnetic field and Jupiter's magnetic field. And at number 4 today we have the blinking stars. Now let's change it up a bit. This next signal is not one that you can listen to, but it's a one that you can see. Back in 2016, a group of Canadian astronomers saw 234 stars blinking at the same time. Now this is very odd. How is it that such a large amount of stars are blinking all together at the exact same time? One of the astronomers, Eric Trotter, is convinced that the blinking stars are a signal from aliens. He thinks that they are using some type of laser to communicate with us. They are flashing these lasers all at the same time to get our attention. So does that mean that they have 234 lasers, or just, I don't even know. But either way, this is really odd, and we still don't know what caused it or what it means. Moving on to number 3, we have the quasi-crystal. This is something that crashed down onto Earth in 1979 Siberia. When it was first dug up, people were like, okay, it's just a hunk of rock. But no. Little did they know that it was something way more advanced. The quasi-crystal had 60 points of rotational symmetry that seemed to be perfectly made by technology that is unknown to humans. This isn't something that could naturally form in nature as far as we know. It looks as if this was created by some sort of alien race and then launched out into space to educate another species on the ways of advanced technology. So far, we have discovered no way to replicate this type of structure whatsoever. Also, this crystal dates back to 4.5 billion years ago, so it's really freaking strange. Is it true? Could it have been sent from another species? Coming in at number 2, we have the screams from Ganymede. Over the years, astronomers have recorded a number of freaky sounds from Jupiter's moon Ganymede. This sound I'm about to share with you is what was recorded when a spacecraft flew by Jupiter's moon. It honestly sounds like aliens talking to each other and then using some weird electronic device to send out beeping signals, like maybe it's a message. But that's not the worst part. They captured what sounds like someone screaming. That's horrifying. It sounds like someone yelling out in pain. Another time astronomers were shocked by the sounds from Ganymede were when they converted the chorus waves around the planet and moons into sound. Again, it sounds very frightening and bizarre, as if someone is trying to tell us something. And in our number 1 spot today we have Proxima Centauri. A number of scientists are dedicated to finding and investigating alien life. In fact, they believe that a signal from a nearby star was sent by aliens. Basically, they received a narrow beam of radio waves coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri, a red dwarf star 4.2 light years away from Earth. It's the nearest star to the Sun. They claim that this signal is the first serious candidate since the WOW signal. If you don't know what the WOW signal is, I talked about it in part 1, so check it out. Anyways, let's listen to what they recorded. Scientists have yet to discover what was causing the signal. Now, that high-pitched buzzing sound continues on for a long time, then all of a sudden it changes very abruptly. Like, what the actual hell was that? I don't know, and I never want to hear it again. What makes things creepier is that at least 2 planets orbit this star. Those planets are believed to be habitable for certain life forms. So maybe something is out there living on those planets and sending us signals. Starting off this countdown, we have Jupiter's ionosphere. This eerie recording was recorded by NASA's Juno spacecraft in February of 2017. This is the sound of the plasma waves in Jupiter's ionosphere. And let me tell you, it's eerie. It starts off as just like a plain, almost static sound. Then it picks up and sounds like roars. that's not even that bad, I will admit. The freakiest part though is when it captured what sounded like someone moaning or groaning in pain. Listen carefully. It happened pretty fast, but you can hear like a sound. That same low grunt happened several other times throughout the recording, and they don't know what it's from. Obviously NASA is like, oh, it's just the natural sounds of Jupiter, but everyone else is like, aliens! In our ninth spot today we have the knocking sound. Back in 2003, astronaut Yang Liwi became China's first man in space. In 2016, Yang revealed during interviews how terrified he actually was up in space by himself. In fact, he told his creepy story of the unknown knocking sound he heard. So basically he claims that he heard, and I quote, someone knocking the body of the spaceship just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer. It neither came from outside nor inside the spaceship. He looked outside of the porthole but never saw anything tapping on the spaceship. Since his return to Earth, they still haven't figured out what caused this sound. They even tried to recreate the sound and scenario, but all attempts failed. The only theory is that it happened as a result of the expansion or contraction of the spaceship. Or ghost aliens messing with us. In our 8th spot today we have the Roswell Rock. This is an object that is believed to have been from space. I mean, we get pieces of meteorites all the time, so this space rock shouldn't be unusual, right? Wrong. This rock is unusually smooth and uniform in color. It's just way too perfect. On top of it, the rock has a design protruding from the surface of it. Now, it was given the name the Roswell Rock because it was found in Roswell, New Mexico, which has had its fair share in alien UFO sightings. So it might have been left by some ETs or something. Upon analyzing the rock, researchers have realized that the rock's design actually matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996, which makes this whole thing that much weirder. Some are convinced that this rock is some message sent by aliens. Not only that, but the rock has some weird magnetic properties to it. It's unlike anything they have ever seen before. Linda Moulton, along with other researchers, believe that it's some message sent from aliens or someone or something in space. As for what it means, one theory is that the rock contains a date for some event that has or will happen. Moving on at number 7 we have Europa. Europa, otherwise known as Jupiter 2, is the smallest of the 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. Back in 2017, when the Galileo spacecraft flew by the moon, it picked up some weird signals. Kinda creepy and alien-like, not gonna lie. But wait until you hear the screams it picked up. Yes, you heard me correctly, it picked up something that sounds like screams. NASA claims it's just the sounds of the plasma waves interacting with Earth's magnetic fields that somehow created a strange whistling noise that sounds like an alien screaming. Or it could just be an alien screaming. Coming in at number 6 we have the Voyager plasma sounds. That's one way to hurt your eardrums. This sound was recorded by Voyager 2 as it passed by the outer magnetosphere in 1979. This is the sound created, and I quote, at a special frequency in the plasma with a magnetic field. The frequency is set by the number of electrons in a given volume and the strength of the magnetic field. That's what NASA had to say about it. Now the last couple of seconds sound almost like birds singing in the morning, but as we all know, there are no birds in space. Unless, are there alien birds? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Dropa discs. Hands down, this object came from space and is a message sent by aliens. So in 1938, an archaeologist led an expedition near the Bayan Har Mountains in China. While there, they came across some ancient caves that had these weird discs buried in there. These discs were over 10,000 years old and resembled phonograph records. So they were like, wait a minute, what if it is a record and holds some kind of message? So then they were placed on this like special turntable, and the discs would vibrate / hum in a weird rhythm as if an electric charge was passing through them. To make things weirder, the discs had images carved into them. The drawings told a story about a spaceship that crashed into the mountains. Coincidence? I think not. So theory goes that these records contained some sort of message from aliens that we have yet to solve. Moving on to number 4, we have the Hubble. When I say that this is the scariest space recording I have ever listened to, this is the scariest space recording I have ever listened to. So that was recorded by the NASA Hubble Space Telescope. It's the sounds from the Helix Nebula, which is 655 light years away. Now space has no sounds, and clearly these audio recordings dispute that, but no, what they did is use sonification to figure out what it would sound like if it did produce sounds. And then this clip went viral on Twitter because it sounds like a scary woman screaming. At first, I thought it sounded like that damn ghost from Scooby-Doo. You know, hey!
Get out of here!
But then you hear that scream, and that's enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Moving on to number 3, we have the unexplained music. So back in 1969, during the Apollo 10 space mission, the astronauts on board the shuttle claimed to have heard eerie music as they circled the moon. It happened when the astronauts were on the far side of the moon and lost radio and visual contact with mission control. They were alone for about an hour just traveling along listening to this spooky music, which today still hasn't been solved. The astronauts described it as unusual whistling noises or space music. In fact, the astronauts debated telling mission control about it. They feared they wouldn't believe them and that they wouldn't be taken seriously on future space missions. Although we don't have a concrete answer for what the sounds could be, theory goes that the noises were a result of radio interference, whereas others believe it was some sort of message from aliens. Or maybe it was aliens blasting their music, just having a party on one of the planets, and then we rudely interrupted them. Coming in at number 2, we have the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Just taking a few hits here. We're right up on top of the tail. Not too bad.
Max flight.
Flight Max.
And there's no commonality between all these tire pressure instrumentations and the hydraulic return instrumentations.
No, sir. That's...
On February 1st, 2003, the Columbia Space Shuttle was destroyed upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere. All 7 individuals on board sadly lost their lives. The signals and messages they sent to mission control while this was happening was horrifying. NASA released the transcript as well as some of the final messages of the astronauts, and just hearing it is heartbreaking. Basically, mission control started noticing a bunch of things going wrong with the craft. The individuals on board tried to stay calm and think positively, but they just kept getting worse and worse news from mission control.
ACOM.
I've got 4 temperature sensors on the bond line data that are off scale low.
Columbia out of communications at present with mission control as it continues its course toward Florida.
I didn't expect this bad of a hit on comm.
The saddest part was towards the end of the recording, they keep sending messages to the space shuttle, but all they hear is silence. That's when entry flight director Leroy Kane says, "Lock the doors."
YGC, lock the doors. Copy.
This means nobody leaves mission control until everyone finishes their reports and written accounts of what they just witnessed. They knew that this was the end of the crew and the mission. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Cassini spacecraft. Back in 2004, the Cassini spacecraft went into orbit around Saturn. It was on a mission to study Saturn's rings and moons, you name it. But while out there, it picked up some creepy emissions. They then altered the emissions so that they could be heard by the human ear, and what they captured is quite eerie. was pretty much constant, like it gets louder at some points, but I'm sure you all heard that weird split second of a different noise. I have no clue what on earth that was, and maybe I don't ever want to even know.